cool. So one of my videos got a huge amount of views, so I am going to continue this. I'm going to continue this type of video sequence of just Pokemon theory crafting, since that seems kind of popular. So, the Pokemon world is filled with legends of creators and forces that shape both space and time. Yet among these mysteries, Mega Evolution remains one of the most captivating and least understood phenomena in Pokemon biology. Though first classified and popularized in the Kalos region, reports from other regions have long hinted that its roots may extend far deeper into Pokemon history than Professor Sycamore initially proposed. His own statements appear divided, claiming on one hand that Mega Evolution emerged from stones irradiated by the light of Xerneas and Yveltal's energies 3,000 years ago. Sounds similar to Necrozma's light that bathes Pokemon in light and gives them a huge power boost, but that's neither here nor there. And on the other, it represents a newly discovered form of evolution unique to Kalos. Never before seen, never before discovered at the time of X and Y before Alola came out, so take that as you will. Interesting to note that ancient accounts tell a different story. The Draconid people of Hoenn believe that the power of Mega Evolution rained down from the heavens on fragments of meteorite, linking the phenomenon not to human intervention, but to Rayquaza and cosmic events by thousands of years. Meanwhile, research in distant Alola treats Mega Evolution as something rare and foreign, a power spoken of but seldom observed. With such conflicting origins, the main question remains unresolved. Can any Pokemon Mega Evolve? Or are only certain species naturally capable of channeling the vast energies required to transcend their limits? By examining historical records, evolutionary parallels, and the energy principles underlying the phenomenon, we may uncover whether Mega Evolution is an exclusive gift, a lost natural state, or a universal potential waiting to be unlocked. I'm kind of banking on the third option, just so you know. Recent revelations from Pokemon Legends ZA and the upcoming Mega Dimensions DLC dramatically expanded what we thought we understood about Mega Evolution's history. Previously, the origin of Mega Evolution was debated between Kalos researchers, like Professor Sycamore, who argued that Mega Stones were once evolution stones mutated by the Ultimate Weapon's radiation 3,000 years ago, and the Draconid tribe, who instead believes that Mega Evolution descended from meteorites and Rayquaza's influence thousands of years later. Neither perspective is fully matched, and historical records lacked any mention of Mega Evolution during or immediately after the Ancient War, so it's kind of hard to kind of place these events in the timeline. And this video was supposed to be published before huge chunks of Pokemon Legends ZA came out for the public release. So this is what the original script said before I kind of had to go back and maybe redo it. So it was along the lines of Mega Evolution was first formally documented in X and Y, where specific stones, termed Mega Stones, were observed to catalyze dramatic transformations in certain Pokemon species. Professor Sycamore initially linked these stones to irradiated energy from Xerneas and Yveltal during the firing of the Ultimate Weapon approximately 3,000 years ago. Contrasting accounts emerged from the Draconid people. They say Rayquaza is the one who first initiated Mega Evolution, and while these historical meteorites do not correspond with documented Kalos events, they demonstrate that Pokemon may be exposed to transformative energies in multiple contexts and locations, raising the possibility of independent Mega Evolution mechanisms. From observations and leaks, including Paradox Pokemon in the Paldea region that came out in Scarlet and Violet, and new data from Legends ZA suggests that Mega Evolution is not strictly confined to classic Mega Stones or specific regions. Certain Pokemon appear capable of Mega Evolution without traditional triggers, potentially due to the presence of high concentrations of Mega Energy. These findings, which we've learned throughout the course of Legends ZA, expands the question from a localized phenomenon to one with potential universality, but the precise conditions and species limitation are still kind of a mystery. We're still trying to understand that. But by combining historical accounts geological evidence, and modern observations, we begin to kind of map the broader context in which Mega Evolution may operate and whether any Pokemon could theoretically access this transformative potential under the right conditions. That was the old script. Now that I've played Legends ZA, we've learned a little bit more about the game, the story, how Rogue Mega Evolution works, and now with the Mega Dimensions DLC, this is what I have to say to it. Now, ZA adds a crucial missing chapter. AZ's own recounting reveals that 2,000 years ago, he built the original Lumiose Tower for a person of great power. Who that person is, I don't know, but I would maybe like to understand that one day. And designed it so that Floette could channel life energy, what the Devon Corporation later calls infinity energy, to revitalize the city of Lumiose. That plan never came to fruition, but the tower and its intended purpose reveal a pattern. Massive concentrations of life energy have repeatedly entered Kalos across history, often through artificial means. And every time that happens, the war 3,000 years ago, the refiring of the ultimate weapon by Lysander, and now the events of Legends ZA, new Mega Evolutions have begun appearing. This pattern provides the strongest historical correlation yet that Mega Evolution is directly tied to surges of concentrated life energy, which the player base already knows that. Anyone who is looking into Mega Energy, from a fan's perspective, knows this is the case. But I want to build a little bit more onto that. I want to throw my own little spin to it. So, based on historical records, observed phenomena, and recent discoveries tied to infinity energy, I originally proposed that any fully evolved Pokemon is theoretically capable of Mega Evolution. But I would also argue that Game Freak would probably make it so that there are some exceptions for local regional variants just for game development reasons. But given the new data, my working hypothesis builds a little bit upon that. Any fully evolved Pokemon, regardless of region, time period, or origin timeline, is capable of Mega Evolution if exposed to sufficiently high concentrations of life energy. Stick with me here. Under normal circumstances, this requires a trainer's bond and a Megastone, but Legends ZA demonstrates that when the life energy concentration is way too high because of the event of the Lumiose Tower overflowing with Mega Energy, a Pokemon can be forcibly pushed into a temporary rogue Mega State without a trainer, and subsequently produce its own Megastone. This suggests that Megastones are not ancient relics, but products of Pokemon themselves under the right, or wrong, conditions. More on that in a bit. So the foundation for this idea stems from several key observations that I noticed throughout the game's lore, and throughout our history of just learning from Pokemon X and Y, Pokemon Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, Pokemon Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Moon, and now with Legends ZA, is that 1. Rogue Mega Evolution creates Megastones. That's big. That really reveals a lot of information that we didn't know before, and I feel like that has some really big implications that no one really seems to be talking about all that much for some reason. And where do I get that evidence from? Naveen observed that, Pokemon that undergo Rogue Mega Evolution leave behind a Megastone that did not exist beforehand. That's huge because, 1, we have never seen, we've never been explicitly told where Megastones actually come from and have seen it be produced. Maybe it was always an artificial thing that was produced after the fact, like with what the Quasarticle Inc. is doing. We give them Mega Shards and they give us Mega Stones, so we assumed that maybe they were synthetically making these Mega Stones. That doesn't seem to be the case. 2, we never see wild Pokemon holding undiscovered Mega Stones up until this point in history, up until this point in the game. These Pokemon are not feeling so well, they're in this dazed, confused state, then they just undergo Rogue Mega Evolution, we pacify them by beating them, and then they just leave behind the Megastone. The third thing is that, the stone that we always come across after the fight is the exact same species that we had fought. So there's some kind of direct correlation. So like you're gonna find a Mega Charizard Y Mega Stone from a Mega Slowbro rogue fight. That's not the case. So this is big because this supports a new mechanism. Mega Stones are crystallized excess life energy produced after a Pokemon forcibly channels a Mega form without a trainer to regulate it. For good or for worse, that is a thing that can happen. Another thing to point out is that Mega Evolution appears in bursts after these major life energy events. There's this repeating historical pattern that we can see. 3,000 years ago, AZ fires the ultimate weapon. It's a massive surge of life energy. Sometime between then and during the X and Y era, we have seen Mega Evolution start to appear, with Lucario being the first Pokemon to Mega Evolve in the Kalos region, specifically in the Kalos region, not in history. We don't know about that. Rayquaza seems to be like a foil to that type of idea. So I'm just gonna generalize and say, in Kalos, through documentation, Lucario was the first to Mega Evolve. Before X and Y began, we don't know when, it just did. Now in X and Y, the weapon is reactivated again by Lysander and is fired. And that has resulted in new Mega Evolutions that have been discovered during over the next 5 years up until we get to Legend ZA. Where now in Legend ZA, we have Floette and Ange fusing together and releasing this uncontrollable life energy once we have defeated them. These new Pokemon forms are probably now starting to appear. These new Rogue Mega Evolutions are probably going to spike in the upcoming Mega Dimensions DLC. After the Floette Ange, after that whole situation transpires, now we're seeing things like Mega Raichu X and Y, and now we're seeing Mega Zeraora. And now leaks have also told us of some other mythical Pokemon and other Pokemon in general. We have seen Mega Chimecho. That's pretty cool. I like the little guy, so I'm glad he's getting a Mega. These weren't discovered in the past, and this suggests that Mega Evolution isn't a rare phenomenon tied to a specific species list. It's tied to energy availability. The third point I want to talk about briefly is the idea that any Pokemon can Mega Evolve. That's my idea. That's what I'd like to think is happening, and it seems like that's, for the most part, true. It's mostly true. In light of new data, any fully evolved Pokemon is biologically capable of Mega Evolution if exposed to enough life energy. Rogue Mega Evolution proves that energy is probably the limiting factor, not a biological compatibility. We've seen various Pokemon, known and unknown at the time of Legend ZA, that can Mega Evolve. We knew Slowbro could evolve. We did not know in-game at the time that Dragonite could evolve. That was an entirely new, a recently established piece of lore. Though your rival character tells you, hey, it has not been that long since we discovered Dragonite being capable of Mega Evolution, just so you know. But as far as we're aware, edge cases like regional forms like a Galarian Slowbro seem to not exist, only because it's limited by game mechanics or item availability. It does not seem to be established on any lore that a Galarian Slowbro is unable to Mega Evolve. We've seen Pokemon from the Galar region, we've seen Pokemon from the Paldea region that can Mega Evolve. So this would also explain paradox forms and ancient extinct species. We already have evidence that time does not really seem to be a type of barrier. We know that Aerodactyl can Mega Evolve despite having been extinct for millions, presumably millions and millions of years, only until recently where it was restored. And now it can just instantly Mega Evolve somehow, some way. That was probably something that happened after the events of X and Y. After Lysander fired the ultimate weapon, now the Aerodactyl has been restored. It is now existing in the environment, probably an introduced species that can Mega Evolve. And it's entirely new. It's probably something that probably did not exist 3,000 years ago, but it's definitely something that exists now in the present day. Another thing to note is that some Paradox Pokemon resemble Mega-like forms that evolved naturally in environments with abundant ambient life energy. It's kind of difficult to get my thoughts across, but it's effectively what Roaring Moon was. Roaring Moon looks an awful lot like a Mega Salamence. It's possible that in some alternate reality timeline where abundant life energy just constantly exists, Salamence probably does look like Roaring Moon. Its mega form is just a natural form of that Pokemon species. It's just part of the biology in that timeline. Possibly something to consider. So in summary, Mega Evolution likely represents a universal latent potential among final stage Pokemon, Exy's Floette not included, constrained only by the presence of compatible energy conduits, megastones or equivalents, and resonance factor that may differ between forms, regions, or timelines. So what are some implications and future explorations regarding this idea, if this is true, if any Pokemon can Mega Evolve? If any final stage Pokemon is theoretically capable of Mega Evolution, then the mechanism governing this transformation may not be limited to species-specific factors, but instead depend on the presence and availability of infinity energy. If you want to assume that Galarian Slowbro is absolutely not capable of Mega Evolution and is not just a simple game development issue, then we can assume that regional adaptation, while beneficial for survival, may come at the cost of reduced responsiveness to this infinity energy stimuli. Now, I don't believe that is the case, but if you want to go with an in-game explanation as to why certain regional forms don't Mega Evolve, and it's not because Game Freak is being lazy and they don't want to put in the extra effort, that's a possible reasoning. Furthermore, the potential inclusion of extinct or time-displaced Pokemon like Aerodactyl or Paradox species would be a pretty neat idea that Mega Evolution is a universal process rooted in energy-environment interactions rather than the temporal origin of some of these species. The hypothesized existence of Mega forms for Pokemon such as FLYGON or Kyurem in alternate timelines or adjacent realities would, if confirmed, highlight the fluidity of evolutionary pathways under varying energy densities. It would be so cool to have maybe other realities we can just one day explore where, hey, Mega Flygon does exist. Or hey, turns out the original dragon of Kyurem, Zekrom, and Reshiram, that original dragon, can probably receive a Mega form if forced. In whatever crazy conditions you would need to have all of that put together in that timeline, it's very possible. And I would love to see maybe some kind of Paradox species form of the original dragon that would probably look like a Mega form of that original dragon. Heck, even Mega Charizard Z and new forms can become theoretically possible, because Megastones can be created by force through this rogue evolution in theory. A Charizard exposed to an overwhelming energy spike could generate a third form, just as Charizard X and Y resulted from different energy qualities. It seems like Mega Charizard's X form deals more with physical attack, while Charizard's Y form deals more with special attack. It's possible that maybe these stones were generated by Charizards with specific EV and IV training that resulted in the formation of these very specific stones. And if we were to have a third Charizard undergo this very specific transformation, this Force Rogue Mega Evolution, with completely different quality in this training, maybe it could produce a completely different form that is neither X nor Y. That's something to consider. And at that point, mythicals like Mew or Jirachi could produce unique stones if they were exposed to unsafe levels of this life energy. And it's important to mention here at this point that a bad actor, any bad person, any villain, could weaponize life energy concentrations to artificially produce the creation of entirely new Megastones never before seen for Pokemon that probably would never have received any Megastones by Game Freak. So this could turn Mega Evolution from this mystical bond-based phenomenon into a potential biotechnological process with very extreme ethical concerns. I would love to see a future villain team use this type of method, to use this type of highly unethical, forced Mega Evolution just to extract the Megastone from these Pokemon and probably even just discard them after the fact. They don't need to care about a Raticate that was forced to undergo this Rogue Mega Evolution once you already have the Raticate I Stone for your Raticate that's probably way better with stats and IVs and EV training. that's just something that would be really interesting to explore in the Pokemon universe if we were ever able to return to Mega Evolutions in the future, because it seems like we will not return to this for a decade at the minimum. And with the release of Legend ZA, that has single-handedly transformed our understanding of Mega Evolution. It is no longer this mysterious Kalos or this mysterious Hoenn exclusive trait. It's not a stone-based mutation. It just seems to be a reversible, energy-induced, temporary evolutionary overdrive that any fully evolved Pokemon can undergo, naturally, painfully, or through a trainer's guidance. So this can then just reframe Mega Evolution as something that is biologically universal, dependent on energy availability, is historically triggered by catastrophic events, capable of producing new Megastones through forced transformations. And with the Mega Dimensions DLC introducing even more new Mega Evolutions sourced from Hyperspace Lumios, we now have direct confirmation that Mega Evolution is not a closed list. It never was. It expands whenever the world gains access to more life energy at a single point in space. This means that Mega Evolution is a framework, not a mechanic, and the limits exist only where the energy supply ends, and future exploration should aim to identify the environmental or genetic factors that enable or suppress infinity energy resonance across regions and time periods, if that is even a limiting factor. That was a long ramble. Make sure to like the video and comment below what you thought of this idea, and I'll see you guys in the next video.